Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to Liam's Lyceum. I'm your host, Liam, as always, aka Hemvar. And today I'm with some special guests. We're going to be talking about a buddy read we did, actually. So I'm with my wife, Abigail, who's appeared on the channel like once before, I think. And then my sister-in-law, Leah. Um, yeah. So, yeah, hi, sister. We,
That's weird.
we we read a book. You can kind of see the cover on the background here. Of course, you can't actually see the title. But this is Enchantment. Of course, the title of the video will give us away.
Leah chose it.
Yeah, it's Enchantment by Orson Scott Card, and Leah actually made the choice. I mean, we agreed to it.
Do you have the physical copy, Leah?
I do. I have it right here. So
yes, there it is. See, we don't have a physical copy.
We didn't. Yeah, we just got
this
audio.
is my friend's. She lended it to me so we could read it.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Yeah, so this Enchantment is, I think it came out in 1999. It is a fantasy retelling of Sleeping Beauty. I guess the Ukrainian version in particular. I'm not sure. I can't say I'm a Sleeping Beauty expert. But it's Ukrainian or Russian, close enough, right? One of those two. Both of them. It's kind of those phrases are actually used interchangeably almost at some parts in the book. But yeah, released in 1999. It is by Orson Scott Card, who's a somewhat divisive author, but we will not talk about that today. We'll talk about the book. But
What does divisive author mean?
Some people don't like him.
Why?
Because of his views on homosexuality. So he is pretty popular. He's once upon a time more popular, I would say. I read his Ender's Game books. I read a couple of them, actually. I read Ender's Game and Speaker for the Dead, which are really good, but I read them when I was like, I don't know, 14 or something. So it's been a minute. And this is nothing like those. Okay, Ender's Game is sci-fi. This is the common colloquial term is romantasy, which I'm sure has been a saying longer than it sounds like it has, but it gained popularity in the last year or two. Romantasy, it's just fantasy romance. It's a fantasy romance novel. Okay, that's like when you know that, you know what you're getting, kind of, right? There's romance. What the level of spice, kind of, you don't know exactly. We'll get into that probably too. I mean,
you don't read a whole lot of fantasy.
It's not erotica. It's not erotica. I could say that. All right, but it's definitely romantic. If you, I guess.
He wrote this after the book
Ender's Game. Yeah, Ender's Game is from the 80s, I think. So he's already a pretty established author at this point. But yeah, so it's set in it's kind of portal fantasy as well. So it's historical fantasy, portal fantasy. We'll get into that. But overall, I thought the book was okay. It's a little long. I don't know how long the physical copy is, Leah, but
that's what I was going to say. Yeah, it's a little bit.
Do you know how many pages?
Oh, let me see.
Did you feel like the chapters were long compared to?
Long chapters. I feel
the chapters are a little bit on the long side. I've read way worse. I mean, like I just finished.
You're showing me
this
today.
book.
This has
4 chapters in this book, and it's 400 pages. So these chapters are way worse in that book.
Short story.
But it's a little smaller book though.
But they're also not. Yeah, they're also not short chapters for sure. They're on the longer side. But yeah, no, I enjoyed the story. I thought it was interesting. There's a certain plot point which I thought was pretty intriguing because the story starts in a weird thing. I'm sure we'll talk about in a minute, but it starts about converting to Judaism. But it kind of gets into the meat of the story about like this portal fantasy type of thing, right? You go into a fantasy land type of thing, but it doesn't do exactly what I think it would do. We'll talk about that when we get to the spoiler section. But overall, I enjoyed the story. Not my type of story. Really? Like
didn't I ask you? I was like, are you gonna be embarrassed reviewing this kind of book on your channel?
This is definitely not what I talk about. Like ever.
No, sorry, I wouldn't mean to hate on your book, Leah. I personally really.
It's fine because it was recommended to me too, but I would say this is like honestly not what I would read either. But I really liked that it was different. Like,
what do you normally read?
Honestly, just like historical like romance. That's why I was like gonna give this a try because it was great. But it is like 415 pages, so a little bit longer than your average novel. But yeah, that was like one of the things I liked a lot about it is because it was so different, and it's not what I usually read. But maybe I just need to read more books that are a bit.
I need to read more books. You guys read way more than I do. I feel a little bit, yeah, like I don't know what I'm talking about. I mean, I like the story a lot more than I thought I would, but comparatively to other books, I don't have much to go off of. I feel like, which that'll change. I'll read more.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I read a lot of fantasy, but I definitely don't read this type of fantasy normally, which kind of shows like how much variety you can actually have with the label of fantasy, right? I mean, it's set in the 90s, I think, right? It's actually the early 90s for the most part, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's kind of it's historical fiction almost in that sense. It's by itself, because that's a very different historical time period. It's right at the end of the Cold War. But it also takes place partially in the 10th century. So
it seems pretty realistic until they add, the magic in there, and everyone's talking about it like it's normal. That was that made the bridge between, like, because I really like nonfiction. Just because I like realism, I like a lot. I have a hard time with fantasy just because it's, I don't know. I can't wrap my mind around things that aren't real so much, which sounds, I know you don't get it, but it was nice how they kind of took it as their normal and they didn't, think anything of it. Like they were just like, well, watch. Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, the main character kind of has a problem with that too, actually. And then the reverse of that, Katerina having a problem with technology. But before we really get into spoilers, I guess just real quick, Abigail and then Leah, what are your overall thoughts? Like, did you enjoy it? Any gripes that you want to particularly mention before we talk about details?
Do you want to go first? Or you want me
to? You go first because mine might.
I was a little bit thrown off at how it's told in third person. I prefer first person, but it wasn't bad at all. I could tell it was written by a guy. That I think that's one of my biggest critiques is just from, and we had a really
particularly the women's part.
Right.
You could tell it's a guy and not an actual
woman. Yeah, the women's part. Do you tell me what you think about this, Leah? Do you feel like her character was written really well, or what are your thoughts on how he wrote her?
No, I was actually gonna 100% agree with you on that part. Like, I feel like I feel like, he just wrote her to be very, I don't know, perfect, pretty much. I don't know, in some senses.
Not realistic. Not as realistic as I was, because I was like, I was trying to take it personally, and I'm like, personally, I don't feel like I, as a woman, sympathize with these thoughts that she's having. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense, Leah?
Yeah.
Do you sympathize? Okay. We had a pretty in-depth discussion about this. I think we ended up not agreeing in the end, kind of. Because you thought he wrote her very well.
No, I thought he did okay.
Okay.
It's hard for me to tell. I'm not a woman, so like.
That's why I'm asking Leah. Yeah. So I would like to. Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But I overall I thought it was very well written. I liked how he writes. I don't know. Besides her character, I felt like the way he described things was very interesting, and I felt like, I don't know, it was just so different from what I'm used to. I was so into it, and even though it's such a long book, like, it did keep me entertained. I have to agree with you on the magic part. It kind of lost me a little bit there, but it was still interesting enough to, like, push me to keep reading. I don't know.
Do you like magic books?
No, that's good.
Do you like reading magic in your books, or you tend to be on more the nonfiction side?
I don't know. If it's written well, like where I can follow along with it, then I really like it. But if I just get lost in it, then it just makes me mad. I don't know.
Yeah. That makes sense.
It's a hit or miss, honestly.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I mean, it sounds like we all enjoyed it overall, but we didn't think it was like the greatest thing ever, right?
I liked his
sliced bread.
I feel like the characters were very mature. I like that. I feel like they were smart characters. I applauded. We kind of said that too. Sorry, we
Yeah,
obviously talked about where we were and stuff. But yeah, they're good characters. We really enjoyed
yeah.
their.
I liked Yvonne, but we can get into spoilers now. I guess just that. I mean, we could be more structured here, but I'm not going to. Anyways, and so yeah, no, I think Yvonne's probably the best part of the book.
Me too,
Um,
honestly.
yeah,
She was saying how Leah fell in love with Yvonne.
He's just so real. Like I liked how the author didn't paint him to be like, the chosen one and he's perfect from birth and he just makes all the right decisions. And he was funny, like hilarious. I don't know about you, but I thought he was like hilarious and I was laughing a lot. So, and I think it's like, those little things that really give the character depth. And that's what made me really, really like him. I don't know.
yeah, he's a pretty chill. He's pretty analytical. I thought logical to a degree. In a way, he's very chivalric, right? I mean, like, he's a good guy.
Their
Right.
relationship is sweet. Yeah, I like how it's really that you can watch them grow in their. That's what I really liked, is seeing the two real people like struggle together, and I really like their love story, and I think everyone can learn some things from that in a way.
Yeah,
they were just.
I think it's a decent example of romance in general. It's not really sleazy, right? It's not like
it's a pure amount of sleazy.
Okay, well, we can talk about the thinking the spice. Anyways, it
is spicy. There are moments where it is done, but it's a what's the word I'm looking for? It's a pure amount.
It didn't seem like too much. To a degree. Now, I wasn't expecting it, actually, if we wanted to talk about it now. I mean, it starts off that way. Yes. The book starts in the 1970s, I think, or something like that. And it's when Ivan, or Isaac Shlomo, is a child. I don't know, he's like 10 or something. And he lives in Kiev. Okay, he's from Ukraine, he's from Kiev. And his dad's like, by the way, we're Jews. And so we're going to do that now. We're going to do the Judaism thing. And so that they do it so they can get out of the country, right? They don't want to live in the Soviet Union, right? So they go to Austria, and then from Austria, I think the idea is they're supposed to go to Israel. I can't remember if they actually do, but they go to America. They end up in America, right? But like it's very Jewish in that sense. I mean, it even gets into the Israeli-Palestinian conflict a little bit, but it's like they're like, we're gonna do the Jewish thing, so they start saying their prayers and wearing the kippah, and he gets circumcised when he's like 10, and I was like, this is weird. Like, this is weird. Like, it's not what I was expecting, especially to start the story. It's like, yes, it's realistic in a way. Like, as a 10-year-old boy, that would be a very uncomfortable experience. Like,
you were more comfortable with Leah reading this and not me. You were like, I wonder what Leah thinks about this. It's like, Leah, what about your wife? I'm just kidding.
It's I don't know. It's weird. I thought, like, okay, to put it bluntly, I'm not sure I've read a book ever that said the word penis more than this book. Okay, like,
fair enough, but it's an innocent sort of way.
That's what I thought. Like, honestly,
I did not feel uncomfortable at all.
Yeah, that was me too. Like, I just thought it was funny. Like, I guess it's just the way you take it, Liam. So wherever your mind goes is how dirty it is. But I'm just saying, like, there's a lot of scenes in this book where, like, I don't know, all the naked scenes, like, I didn't even view them as like naked. It was just funny. Like,
just like, well, we're naked. Okay.
I don't know.
Guess we better deal with this.
We're naked. Well, they are kind of funny. So I mean, like, the first, besides the circumcision thing in chapter 1, it comes up pretty early in the story, right? Because he comes back as like during postgraduate studies to like be in his native land, or whatever, and he's studying linguistics, historical linguistics for Old Church Slavonic, which is a dead language. It's basically the ancestor to, I don't know enough about it to say this confidently, but it's essentially the ancestor to the Slavic languages it probably is not the answers to all of them. It's probably just the oldest attested one, right? So it's related to all of them at least.
Did you like how it had that? Because you're a language guy.
Yeah, I don't do Slavic really at all, right? But it's kind of like the Slavic version of Old English or like Old Norse or Old High German or something. So
that was cool. He knew the language.
Yeah, the language stuff was interesting. It actually works really well for him plot wise. But then he gets then first naked scene is like very quickly, right? Because it's portal fantasy, right? So he's essentially like he finds Sleeping Beauty in the forest. There's a bear there. That's actually one of the weirder parts of the book is this bear and Baba Yaga. But
bear acting kind of.
And there's like there's these two bridges. One is in his world, one is in her world, and so when he goes across hers, he all of a sudden doesn't have any clothes. And she's like, I'm not letting you wear my clothes. Like, these are women's garments. Like,
can I mention something about the magic thing again? When they go to his world, she's like, I thought you said you didn't have magic here, but this is obviously magic. You guys have the internet or whatever. Yeah. That's interesting.
Internet wasn't much of a thing, actually, I don't think, in the early 90s. I'm pretty sure that's when it takes place, the early 90s. But light switch, that was like one thing. She was like, this is like a spell, or whatever.
I don't understand. Yeah, sorry. So it's interesting, the whole thing with wearing his clothes as being disrespectful, and she had to kind of switch her thinking.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on like 10th century like Ukraine's. It's a made up kingdom. It's called like Taina or something like that. Which I don't think is real. It's just some made up kingdom around Kievan Rus or something like that, in like the 10th or 9th century. I can't remember exactly. I can't act like I know what their ideas of like clothing were like. You know what I mean? Because there's like weird double standards. It's like, oh, wearing women's clothing is like a big no, but if you're naked, that's cool. Like so like right, like at one point he says like like a lot of like, I don't know if he says it this way, but a lot of postmodernism is like okay with like nudity, human body, like whether it's feminism or something like that. He's like, but he says basically they'd be considered prudes in China, right? Because they're just like so okay with it. But I was like, I can't say if that's 100% accurate. I have no clue. That makes kind of sense to me. We kind of just judge the past in like one big bubble sometimes. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is Joan of Arc. I think wasn't she like put to death for cross-dressing or something like that? Like technically, it's like, yeah, you're not allowed to wear armor. That's men's clothing, so I'm gonna have to kill you. So like,
yeah, it would definitely come a long way. I mean, women can run marathons now.
Yeah, ooh, that's crazy.
Not good, but we can.
We're separated from the boys for a reason. No. I have some things written down. Sorry, I was looking at them. Should I get into these?
You can get in whatever you want.
I just like to talk. I guess actually. Okay, so how did you feel about how he handled like her coming into his world and how he kind of prepared her? Because he brought up the whole thing about like, oh, how is she going to survive? How is she going to learn basic things like what a tampon is and just how to, I don't know, and the whole thing with I guess I don't really know where I was going with that. Any thoughts about that?
The plane part, getting on a plane, and like the cars. I think he was really sweet about it. I think he was. I don't know. I liked at that point how she was also able to like connect what he was feeling when he first went into her world, and that's kind of where she started to understand a bit more. And up until that point, I was like mad at her. I was pissed at her for like, this man is so great and you're not like seeing it. And so when she went to his world, I really like that. And I don't know.
I thought she did.
Yeah.
There's some points I thought I was really proud of her for really, really giving him a chance.
True.
In a lot of ways. But that's taking it's not letting the outside influence have anything to do with the relationship. She just said it doesn't matter what other people think. We're going to work on us because that's what we need to do, and that's what helped them be so strong in the end.
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird, like, she's actually largely absent in a good chunk of the first part of the book.
Yeah.
Right? She just, like, doesn't actually care for him because he's a womanish almost, right? Like, that's like one of the things, he's a runner. They don't have runners in their society or whatever. And so, like, they're like, why do you look like this? Type of thing. Like, but it's perfect, right? Because the running is what was able to save her, and his linguistic skills was able to save her as well, right? Because the idea is, like, I think the Baba Yaga says at one point, like, what are the odds, that the someone who kissed her speaks her language in, like, when it's like 1,000 years in the future. But I thought that was actually the whole go into the other world thing was one thing I really liked, because I was not expecting it. Normally when you have like a portal fantasy or something like this, he goes to her world and then he doesn't come back till the end, right? That's what I expected. Like, it's like a homecoming for him. But they come back like halfway through. Right? And then that adds like more stuff because Baba Yaga comes after him in that world and kidnaps a plane. And like his Ruth or whatever, his fiance, gets involved and stuff like that. So
yeah, she's an interesting character. Maybe we can talk about her for a second. But before we do that, I like the how the spells were pretty subtle. Like they were just like awareness spells or oblivion spells. How he's just on the plane and he's like, wait, that doesn't make sense. Oh, that's why it doesn't make sense. It's because Baba Yaga's here. You know what I mean? I thought that was done really well. That was really cool.
Yeah.
Have you caught that?
I mean, my buddy Dave would probably be happy with some of those spells. The women that his mom and I think Katerina, right? Doesn't she practice magic, if I remember correctly? But not much. It's not big flashy stuff. The thing I actually don't like about Baba Yaga is that she just comes off as a cartoon villain. I mean, Baba Yaga is like the villain in Slavic like folklore, but can't say I've read actually much of it. She appears in Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, she's everywhere, right? So I mean, like,
it's nice that you recognize her character, because I didn't. The whole thing with the house on the chicken legs at the end.
Oh yeah,
I didn't know what that was about, but you did.
Right at the very end, she says she's gonna get a house with chicken legs or whatever, and that's what her mythology is. She lives in a house with chicken legs that walks around on giant chicken legs. So I mean,
she
like,
says some terrible stuff sometimes. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Well, she's weird, and how the way she's like all sexual with a bear.
Yeah, that is interesting to wrap your mind around. She's just, I guess she's put out to be a weird character. Yeah.
But anyways, back to your point about her Katerina. I think the shifting of the worlds gives them a lot of room to grow as characters themselves, but also as a couple, I guess, right? Because you have this weird thing keeping them together is the curse, right? Like if he breaks off the engagement, her kingdom and herself are screwed, right? And so that actually blossoms into a good relationship. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's cool. I like the relationship.
Yeah, and what Leo was saying earlier, like how the way he treats her or whatever, it's like it is cute. Right? A card is doing that on purpose, obviously. Like that's what you want. Everyone's gonna think it's cute when they're reading it. I mean, it's a little silly, I think, but it's still cute nonetheless. So
yeah, it was done really well. Ruth didn't have much of a part as I thought she was gonna have. That was actually honestly really interesting. I didn't really get her part all that much. She just kind of wanted revenge, and it kind of like fell on his head a little bit. But
she's the spurned woman, angry. Hell hath no fury.
But Yvonne is so okay with it too. He's like, okay, sure, we'll have a picnic.
Sure. Oh, she tried to kill me. That's cool. I guess so.
Yeah.
And they kill the dog. She kills the dog.
Yeah, I liked
heartbreaking.
Katerina's relationship with his mom. That was a little too good in some ways. I was like, it's worked out perfectly for you guys. Now she's basically like, yes, this is the one I knew you were going to marry. I told you you weren't supposed to marry your fiance. I'm like, okay.
Yes. It's very, very odd mom character.
It
I
is a
think.
little bit interesting, but from a magical point of view, it kind of makes sense, I guess, if she
Uh-huh.
kind of can see the future in some way, maybe.
Yeah. I think it's interesting the mom character because she comes off as in a lot of ways like as the foreign mom, but he speaks the same language as her. You know what I mean? So like she just acts like she doesn't speak English very well, right? But
Yeah, let's see. We don't even ever meet Katrina's mom, do we?
no, her mom's
She's
dead. I
oh,
think
that's right.
right. You
Yeah,
just meet
that's
her
why.
dad. Her dad's the
Hmm.
king. So, and that's the
And
point.
then
Katerina needs a baby.
how
So
about Yvonne's dad? I feel like kind of sympathizes with a lot of fathers in some ways, be like very hard, and you go for your doctorates and that's what you're supposed to do, and end of story.
I can't remember. His dad is a professor, right?
Yeah, but he has a doctorate.
Yeah, something. He taught something along with the language that
Yeah.
is studying, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he would walk around the house talking with Ivan when he was a kid in Old Church Slavonic for some reason. So,
That his wife pretended to not know the whole time.
right.
I forgot
Yes.
about that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Oh my goodness.
He was very supportive of his relationship with Yvonne's relationship with Katrina.
Yeah.
I mean, he
Yeah.
was a little skeptical at first, but
I don't
He's
know. It's pretty
those are interesting parents now I think about it because in a lot of ways they're like very kind of almost absent or just like aloof parents.
very trusting. I
Right.
feel
I
like,
mean
and
like I don't know, they smack of not my parents. I mean like they don't remind me of my parents. Right? I mean like
parents are
yeah, they're trusting. I mean not my parents aren't trusting. You know what I mean? But like
they're just different. All
yeah.
parents have their own style, I guess, of doing stuff, and so it's interesting to see different.
Yeah. And they're not the most important to the story.
They're just there.
You do have some other minor characters. I mean, like the bear, Sergey. I like Sergey.
I thought the bear was funny. I don't know. He was.
Yeah,
he's interesting.
yeah. The bear, who was like a pagan god or something like that.
Yeah.
He can only speak because he's under Baba Yaga's spell.
And
I don't remember his name.
yeah, he was really nice. Remember to Yvonne before they switched places. Remember in the end, I think he shows he has a really good side. He's only but bound to Baba Yaga because of the spell, and then I liked how he was freed. He was so happy when I like that part.
Yeah, it's a happy bear.
Yeah.
I don't know. Again, I don't know about like
Freed from his.
enough about Slavic folklore in and of itself, but I know in like Indo-European folklore, the bear is like a very taboo creature. So much so that you don't even name it. You don't even call it by name. So
Yeah.
I think the Russian word for bear is medved, which just means honey claw. So it's not it. I think our word for bear just comes from the word brown, or something like that. So
He was.
Indo-Europeans are scared of the bear, man. Does
it have anything to do with it? He was Baba Yaga's big tool for whatever she had, right? And as soon as she didn't have.
Yeah, the first thing he did mostly was he guarded Katerina, right?
But as soon as that spell was broken, then Baba Yaga lost all her powers, and which is interesting. That.
Do you guys like Baba Yaga?
No.
I mean, not just. I mean, she's obviously the villain. You're not supposed to like her in that sense. But do you like her as like a character? Like,
I think I somewhat liked the idea that she was like, I'm gonna force you to love me, kind of. That was interesting, and she still talked to him like, "Oh, but I love you so much. Of course, you love me so much. You know what I mean?" But only for her benefit, which was not good. I didn't really like that part. But that was kind of interesting. What do you think about that?
I think the author, he did his job good, but I still don't like her. Like I don't know if she had to do or say like a few of the things that she did. I don't know. But
Yeah.
She says some pretty terrible
I
stuff.
think she's a catalyst. I mean, she's like the main external like conflict, but she's not the main conflict, right? The main conflict is Yvonne and Katarina's relationship, right? That relationship doesn't happen without Baba Yaga, you know, and her meddling and evil doings, you know. But like, she's mostly there for plot reasons, which are fine, I think. You know what I mean? She serves them well, right? Right. We wouldn't have the relationship at all without Baba Yaga. The story wouldn't exist, right? The whole story just wouldn't happen without Baba Yaga. I think she's annoying, personally. Like, I think she comes off as a cartoon villain. I mean, I'm glad that it's interesting that, like, not all magic is portrayed as bad, right? That's kind of fairy tale-esque, right? This is essentially fairy tale, hence the title Enchantment, right? I mean, like, you have the evil witch, the wicked witch or whatever. She's bad. Her magic is bad, but there's like fairy godmother, right? And in this case, it's literally his mother, you know, right? And so, I mean, there's that, you know, contrast of good and bad magic, you know, and she's obviously the bad magic. She's an old hag. She's ugly, which is a little one of those tropes is like, oh, if you're ugly, then you're evil, which is a little silly and outdated. But I mean, Baba Yaga is ugly. I mean, in folklore, so I mean, that's fine. But,
I mean, I feel like anyone would dislike a character. It doesn't make much sense if a person's full goal was to basically make everyone miserable but themselves, and so that doesn't make a whole lot of sense on lots of levels.
She wants to rule the kingdom, doesn't she?
But only for her own benefit, right? She doesn't. She wants to see other people suffer so she can be happy, and I don't feel like anyone would like that type of character.
No, but she's got the power, right? So it's okay.
It makes her feel powerful, yeah. But it's
right, yeah. In her case, you're basically saying there's a stark contrast between her and Katarina's dad, and I don't remember his name.
Yeah, I don't either. What's the contrast?
Like proper rulership, you know, right? Like people want him to rule because he's good. You know what I mean?
And she wants to rule just for
so
her
like
own benefit.
Yeah, right. If she were to come in power, they would just try to kill her. You know, they might fail because she's got magical powers, right? You know what I mean? But like, she doesn't inspire loyalty or anything like that. So,
yeah, that can be to said about a lot of our leaders today. Would you say? Maybe?
Oh, okay. Yes, politicians in general.
Well, right? Aren't they most of them in it just for their own pay and their own benefit? Right?
Seems that way. For sure.
But no, yeah, it's a good book.
So out of 5 stars, Abigail, what do you rate it?
4. I would say 4, just because like it probably wasn't like it wasn't so interesting that like I couldn't put it down, but it was interesting enough where I got into it and liked it for sure.
No,
would I pick it back up? No, I don't think I'd read it again.
Okay.
Sorry. What?
Oh no, you're good. No, go ahead. Actually, Leah, you say your thing.
I was just saying. You said you couldn't put it back down. Like obviously, you had to pick it back up to finish the story. That's what I'm.
She did take the longest. She took the longest to finish the book. So
I did. Yep. I'm trying to think of an excuse for that. Huh?
We all cheated.
I cheated, but I got the audiobook.
Audiobook is not cheating. Sometimes that's the only way.
Only if you listen to it at 3 times the speed. Maybe that's cheating.
If you listen to it while you're trying to talk to somebody else, that's probably not you're not getting anything. But.
Yeah. No.
I feel like we've got the storyline pretty good. I mean, there's a couple parts I missed, but you guys.
I mean, no, I think one final thing, I guess, because this is a very common thing, and I think it comes up more in romance novels. Men writing women and women writing men. I think there's generally more of a complaint for men writing women than there is women writing men.
Why is that? What do you think?
I guess men just can't write women,
is that
or at least not as well in general. I've read some good female characters, from men, obviously, right? And the opposite, right? Good men.
Why do you think guys struggle to write women characters?
That's a good question.
Just so
I
they don't
mean,
understand it,
well, we
maybe.
could look at like
Or
what's the problem with Katarina's character? What do you guys think is the problem with Katarina's character? Because that was your complaint, right?
I just feel like she's too unrealistic. Like I appreciate it. Not that I disliked it, because you were saying that um she was written very good, and I don't disagree with that. Like she was written very good, except it seemed just a little bit too fake, and I can't really
Mm.
come up with a good
Yeah,
example.
she almost seems like a fairy tale person,
Princess kind of
which
with a
she is.
script, maybe a little bit too scripted. Not so much of a, I mean, she thought a lot, but that's also why I think one of my criticisms is she didn't think enough.
Right.
We think a lot about a lot of different points of view, and I think that she was really just, this is what I have to do. And I mean, she thought about the ifs and the buts, but not really so much of maybe what else could have happened.
Yeah.
What do you think, Leah?
I think that like all the points you brought up, like I 100% agree with. Like I don't know, it was hard for me to relate to her because like she's just literally perfect. Even though she's scared to do it, she did it and she did it perfect and she beat Baba Yaga first try. No, just kidding.
Which
But
is
like,
cool, right?
yeah,
It's hard saying that that's a
No,
criticism, but it's also hard to believe at the same time, because like I feel like she still could have came to the same conclusion with a little more realistic ways of getting there.
okay.
yes.
Yeah. So okay. So I like her loyalty to her people and her cause, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think her character in this way is better than her being a damsel in distress. I don't think that would have worked.
Yeah, no, she could definitely have been written a lot worse for sure, but
yeah, and so I can understand maybe where it wasn't handled the best. She's almost one dimensional in her determination. At least if I remember correctly. It's been a couple weeks since I finished this. And she does come off as a little, I don't know, like she does come around a little bit, but like the way she treats Yvonne at first is like But I don't know. I don't have as many complaints, I feel like, besides the fact that she's just not as likable as Yvonne. But is there some character writing problem there? Maybe. I'll take your guys' word for it.
well, I would like to see what the author kind of wanted her to be.
Yeah, like it can't help you there in Ender's Game, because Ender's Game is like an all boy cast. So
yeah, I don't know. I just feel like
I think there
something was
might
a
be a
little bit
grounding.
off
I
about
don't
her character.
remember.
That's all I
Just
really
remember
want to
just what it
say. Sorry.
No, yeah, you're good.
But yeah, I wish I had more of a reason.
No,
Trying to pinpoint it.
no, you're good.
I'm right, okay? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But
I mean, we do get her point of view, right? I mean, like, and she does. I like her parts where she's like, "Oh, maybe Yvonne's not as bad as I think he is," you know. And then there's that parts where there's like, "Well, he's actually really good," and then he does something stupid in the next chapter. He's like, "Wow, I hate this guy."
He's like, straight from hell. but she always, I feel like, ends up with the good thing, which Yvonne too, because
that's the idea.
I guess Yvonne doesn't have as many doubts as she does.
Is it baby?
Yeah, I think so. Baby's waking up. I gotta go.
Okay, and maybe we should end it now. But I guess if we have any final thoughts, Abigail, maybe your final thoughts first. You have to go.
It was fun. It was fun reading it together. It's a lot of good points about the book.
That's it.
Yeah. Are
you
looking for more?
No. That's good. That's good. Okay, Leah, you got any final thoughts?
Yeah, it was definitely not a book I would ever pick up just on my own, but I liked it. It opened a whole new, like, I guess, writing for me. So I thought it was very interesting. And honestly, like, I probably wouldn't read it again, but I'm really glad I did. Okay. That's good.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks for the suggestion.
Yes, the suggestion. Yeah, it's also something I wouldn't read. Like, yeah, it's just not something I'd read. I kind of expected it when I was like, we should read a book together. But
I've had you read worse though. You read
Yes.
You read when we first got married. You read like pure romance.
Yeah, I did.
Oh, which
do you like this
I
one
don't
probably a
remember what
lot
it's called.
more than is that Hope at Dawn? I think.
this one definitely has more like nuance to it and stuff like that. I mean, it wasn't a favorite by any means, you know. Don't think I'd ever reread it. Don't think I'd look for books that are of the same style.
How many times Liam can say he doesn't like this book?
Hey, so on Goodreads, okay, I don't really do star ratings on my channels, but on Goodreads I gave it 3 stars, which I think means I liked it on Goodreads, because 2 stars is like it's okay, and 1 star is like I didn't like it. So I mean, like, I liked it. It wasn't like great. I mean, I'm very used to the third person limited chapters, but you know, with multiple points of views. That's very, very typical actually in epic fantasy. Less typical in heroic fantasy, but
just like it more personal. Were you uncomfortable, Leah, by anything in the book, or?
I mean, I did skip some pages when it got to the sex scene because, you know,
oh yeah, the stinking sex scene. We didn't talk about that.
What
It doesn't actually. It doesn't.
Never...
It's from her point of view, and it's like after the fact, I think, or something like that.
Yeah,
it's not like
I thought it was very
not an actual
sweet.
sex scene.
I liked it.
It's more telling than I thought it would be.
In some ways, I didn't appreciate how explicit it was without being explicit at the same time. It's not explicit, but at the same time, I'm like, it does make you think. Not about anything bad, just about feelings. I like how she put her feelings in there.
Yeah. No, I was just a little surprised, but yeah, her response to it was actually very sweet, and I think it worked as basically an actual climax to that. The main conflict in the story is her and Yvonne, right? That relationship.
It was sweet.
It still is a little like what
when
I read it. So I mean, like, but
it wasn't bad.
So,
I felt like it was.
But Leah skipped it, so it's fine.
Oh yeah.
No.
I
would for you, I guess.
Preferred if it didn't have a lot of, I don't know, explicit words, explicit scenes. I mean,
yeah. This is pretty
fair.
typical in romantasy, at least the stuff from these days. But the stuff from these days is also normally written by women, as far as I'm aware. This is like the weird, like, we read a romantic fantasy book and it's written by a guy.
So you're saying
that's a genre mostly read by women. I mean, like, I've mostly seen it read by women or like homosexual men. I mean, and not to like generalize, but that's just what I've seen, you know? And so, and written by women as well. So it's just like weird to see it written by a guy.
Well, you see, like Nicholas Sparks. I think he's a great writer.
He doesn't write fantasy, but
have you read Nicholas Sparks?
No.
Okay. Have you, Leah?
I have not. No.
Really? Okay.
But yeah, you guys mostly read pretty clean, like
the proper
romance stuff. Yeah, like I don't even know what kind of romance that would be technically. Like it's almost Christian romance.
This is written by an LDS.
Yeah, it's almost Christian romance where it's very clean.
Yeah.
To a degree. It's not erotic
which is
really at all.
Which is what I'm comfortable with, which is I don't really want to read erotic things.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it's an interesting twist on like a medieval romance almost, but it doesn't read like a medieval romance at all, like having read medieval romances, but it has some certain.
Do you read a lot of erotic romances? What am I saying? Like, do you come across those a lot in your
erotic romance
reading? Erotic?
No, in a lot of epic fantasy or sword and sorcery. Okay, in a lot of epic fantasy, if there's sexual content, it's very not explicit.
I don't know how somebody can read a book without romance in it. Like that's just
what keeps it interesting.
I know everything. Romance is always in the back of life. Like, how could you?
No, I agree. You
can read a story about anything.
You'll get some romance in epic fantasy, but that's because the series are longer normally. You'll get some more like romantic stuff in some books. I mean, sword and sorcery romance is not like really like romance, so that's like a one night stand type of thing, which is not really what I'd call romance. So,
no, I don't.
But sword and sorcery is also very short, generally, and it's a lusty genre. Describe it that way. But we should probably end now. So, thanks for joining me, Abigail and Leah.
This is fun. Thanks.
Yes, thanks for reading. Maybe we can read another book together and maybe in a different genre.
You pick it. You tell us.
I have some suggestions kind of stuff.
I'll probably choose a worse one than Leah if I had to choose.
I mean, like Mistborn. Did you finish Mistborn?
What did you say?
Did you finish Mistborn, Leah?
this board. Oh, I have not. I have.
Okay. Well, that
Ah.
has romance in it. So I mean, like, there's fantasy that has romance. It's just generally not the focus of it. Romantic fantasy or romantasy is the fantasy that romance is the focus. But so anyways, I don't read that stuff except for Enchantment. But I do like a good romance in a book. It's just I don't want it to be the focus normally.
Right. That's
Unless
understandable.
it's at least not the main focus. Like if it was like in this case, the Baba Yaga would be slightly more important than the relationship or something like that. Right. But
Well,
in
then,
this book, the relationship is more important.
I
Right.
really
So
need to go, but I think that's just women in general. I was talking to my cousin about this the other day, like how I think women are so like, oh, I need to get married, have kids. Like that's just a lot of what we think about. And guys, he was saying like how he has to be reminded to date. Or do you feel like maybe you
who has to be
sympathize with
reminded?
Eskel?
Oh, Eskel. I was saying
He
Levi.
has
And I was
to.
gonna
He has to be reminded as a romantic part of life and not just work and
yes.
whatever else.
It's
Do you
not
think
intuitive.
so?
It's nice though. I was secret romantic, type of thing. Like I think a lot of guys. But and that's a different topic. But I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I feel like you enjoyed it more than I did, but I didn't dislike it. You also had different complaints. So yeah, it's good variety. Good, nice panel here.
Yeah, that's fun.
Thank you, buddy readers, Abigail and Leah. Maybe we'll read something else at some point. I don't know. So
Let's do it. All right. See
Sounds
you.
good. All right.
yeah.